What's doing, everybody? Today is Thursday, August 29th. The Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, mocks Catholics as Catholic children are slaughtered by a trans maniac. I'm going to have my friend Gordon Chang on the podcast to talk about the 600,000 Chinese students that Trump says are coming to America. And I got my friend Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus joining as well. I'm AlecLace. This is the AlecLace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, welcome everybody to the AlecLace Show. I'm happy and honored as always to be here with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast as it streams live on Rumble, please get down there, hit the follow button, and share the broadcast with everybody in your network, in your neighborhood. I got a great program for you guys today. I got Gordon Chang here coming in a little bit because we're going to talk about this thing that really has thrown MAGA for a loop. It's thrown myself for a loop. Trump saying that he was championing the idea of bringing 600,000 Chinese students to America. So we're going to get into that. And again, I have Jim Pfaff from the Conservative Caucus joining me to touch on some of the trending news. So stick around for all of it. And we're going to start off, obviously, with this tragedy that happened yesterday at the Annunciation Church, this Catholic school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tragedy unfolds. 2 children slaughtered, 17 wounded or injured. The scene was horrific, but I'm going to tell you now, I went on a couple of rants on this yesterday. So if for you guys that follow me on X or you follow me on YouTube or you follow the Trump is trending, you've heard pretty much everything I've had to say about this. And as a Catholic myself, with children that go to Catholic school, K through 8, this is a frightening thing to see. And it's amazing how, when it's Catholics, it's treated differently than any other group, right? You don't see the outsport or support. Hey, we must support our Catholic community. We don't see any kind of support for that. Where it would be if this had been at a synagogue or if this had been at a mosque, it would be handled totally different by the media, especially, that this was a transgender shooter. Now, the media has tried to play around with the words with this. Even Fox News has done this on their words on the bottom of their screen. Oh, the shooter went by 2 names. He didn't go by 2 names. He changed his name because he's a trans. He's a mental illness maniac, is what this guy was. And so, I'm not going to harp on too much more of this stuff, but what has to be said is that the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is one of the most scummiest people that I've seen in politics. This guy, obviously, he's a showman. We know when George Floyd overdosed on fentanyl, and it was arms across America for this drug-addicted career criminal, And Jacob Frey put on the biggest show. He had to outdo everybody. He knelt by the coffin, the gold coffin, while you weren't allowed to go and see your grandmother in the hospital or go to her funeral. He was able to go to George Floyd's funeral during COVID, and he put on one of the biggest performances. Oh, he was crying hysterically at the coffin. Total bullshitter. He didn't shed any tears yesterday for the 2 Catholic children that were slaughtered. You know what he did do? Was he mocked Catholics. Like so many on the left do after a shooting like this. They mock your thoughts and prayers. He says it yesterday. Don't just say thoughts and prayers. And he says it with a face like it, mocking it. And then what does he do? He stands up for the transgender community. He uses the moment to stand up for the trans community. He doesn't stand up for the Catholic community. He stands up for the transgender community after a transgender just slaughtered Catholics right behind him. So here's the 2 pieces back to back. First, him mocking you with thoughts and prayers, and then him standing up for the trans community.
Don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church. Hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity. We should not be operating out of a place of hate for anyone. We should be operating from a place of love for our kids.
He would go on CNN later, and it would be even, and the CNN, the girl on there was praising him. Oh my God, what a powerful moment standing up for the trans community. What a beautiful moment. Well, why did you decide to stand up for the trans community? He goes on he pretty much says the same thing because he's rehearsed. He goes on to this whole thing. People are not going to use this to attack the trans community. He's a total politician, and you can hear it in his voice. He's a total bullshitter, this guy. And I'm telling you, the fact that you decide to stick up for the trans community on a day where a trans slaughters the Catholics, and you don't decide to stand up for the Catholic community, you got your head screwed on wrong. And obviously the guy, he changes his name. His name is Robert Westman. He changes it to Robin Westman. This seems to baffle, the media was like, oh, well, he goes by two names. So no, he didn't go by two names. He changed his name. His parents signed off on this. Okay, there were warning signs with this kid. He had a manifesto, 11-minute video uploaded to YouTube that we never would have saw if people online did not screen record this thing. They would have scrubbed it, and just like the Catholic school that was shot up last year by a transgender, we never would have seen the manifesto. Like the one in Nashville. We never would have seen it. And they would have delayed releasing this guy's name and identity and that he was trans as much longer than they did, but everyone had it out online already. And that's why they hate platforms like X, because people can share information that they don't want out there. And it got so bad that the police chief, they had to come out and had to admit who the shooter was. They had to admit that he was trans. And they had to admit that there was a manifesto because it was already all online. And what did the manifesto show? Showed that this guy was, number one, mentally ill, obviously. It showed that he had was for the LGBTQ terrorist community. He had the terrorism symbol with the LGBTQ sticker on his binder. He had all the things written on his guns. He was obviously he was a demonic person. He was a total anti God. He was like possessed by Satan is how he felt. He drew a cartoon looking at himself in the mirror and seeing himself as a demon. So this kid was deeply, deeply disturbed. And the fact that nobody along the way noticed it or picked up the signs shows what's wrong in our society. Now, Jacob Frey and all of these other people, they mock you for your thoughts and prayers as if we think that is taking action. They make sound like, oh, don't say thoughts and prayers. You have to take action. Well, what is the action? The action always is with these people. We're gonna stop that. We're gonna take action. The only action they have, the only play in the playbook, is to take your gun away. That's it. There is no other action that they're talking about. Because Minnesota has the red flag laws. They have all the gun laws. This was a gun-free school zone, not allowed to bring guns into that zone, and none of the laws worked. And they think thoughts and prayers are ridiculous. The only thing that's ridiculous is saying that what do they say about gun control laws? We need comprehensible gun control laws. Whatever those stupidity is. It sounds... You have to be the dumbest person on the planet to think if you make any gun law, if I told the stupidest, the wackiest, far-out left-wing liberal, and I took him in here and I said, you could create any gun law you want. Go ahead. You say the law, and Congress approves it automatically. Let's go. Give me the law. Whatever law they want. Take my gun away, your gun away, whatever it is that they want to take away. And they put the law in place. The number of shootings in the country wouldn't change by one. You would not notice a single shooting that changes. But they're going to continue to use it. And every time, and every one of them did it, Schumer and Obama and everyone right out the gate. And then they tell you, oh, don't jump out there and assume things about the shooter. But the first thing they do is it's the gun. It's predictable. It's so predictable. We need comprehensive gun control laws. You need to protect the schools, right? You don't see these shootings taking place in federal buildings all the time, do you? No, because they're locked down with metal detectors and all kinds of presence of force. You don't see them happening there. You see them happening at the soft target in a gun-free zone where no one's allowed to carry. The teachers can't carry. But they'll do anything but use common sense when it comes to this. And then they say, we need common sense gun control laws. Again, there's not a single law that you could name that would change the amount of shootings in this country by one. Not one law you could name. You got to protect the schools. That's what has to happen. And again, my heart and my prayers, despite the fact of what the mayor says, they do go out to the families, the Catholic families that were crushed by this maniac yesterday. And again, nobody saw the warning signs. And here's the problem with the transgender community. We are affirming who they are. And the only way you could actually hate, and again, I've gotten smashed on YouTube. My emails were getting lit up because I talked about this. As usual, I get the usual suspects that hit me up. They report my videos and all that other stuff. Say I hate the transgender community because of what I'm saying. And the only people who hate the transgender community are the people who affirm the mental illness of the transgender people. If someone comes to you, whether you're a parent or whether you're a student or you're a counselor, whoever you are, if a child comes to you or a teenager comes to you and says, I think I was born in the wrong body. I want to cut my penis off or my breasts off, and I want to change into a different person. At that moment, if you decide to affirm that child or that teen's or that young adult's thoughts, if you affirm it and you encourage it, you have now openly admitted that you hate that individual. You hate them because you don't have the balls to be honest and say, this person that I love has a mental illness. And instead of doing that, because you're afraid of the backlash of society, you don't want to offend anybody. Oh my God, yeah, you can be a girl, or oh yeah, you can be a boy. You've gone, you yourself belong in a rubber room along with the person. But by affirming it, you're showing that you hate the individual. The only way to actually show love, the only way to actually show compassion, the only way to actually show that you care is to get that individual help, mental health. That's what we have to do. And until we have the conversation and say transgenderism is a mental health issue, we're never going to change any of that, ever. The suicide rate will continue to skyrocket. The shootings will continue to climb. The transgender community commits the most mass per capita, commits the most school shootings. Mass shooting rates by demographics since 2015. Public incidents of 4 or more fatalities based on population, right? Per capita. Trans, non-binary, biological male leads the way. Trans, non-binary, biological female, second place. We've seen all of these shootings that come out of the transgender community. So many of them here. I put a few up on the board. The Denver school shooter, the first one. Denver school shooter, second one. Aberdeen shooter. Nashville shooter. Uvalde shooter. Georgia shooter. Iowa shooter, Philadelphia shooter, Colorado Springs shooter. All of these either trans or non-binary from the LGBTQ community. And we're trying to act like this isn't an epidemic in that community. So much of this stuff is so frustrating to watch, and then we're just confirming the mental illness instead of getting the mental illness help. And they attack you for asking, to do something about it. And getting very, very sick and tired of it. We need to protect our schools. We don't see these shootings taking place at the federal buildings because they're so well protected. We don't protect our schools the way that we should. And instead of actually taking action in that way, they want to take this mythical action of gun control, and it's ridiculous. And so tired of seeing the Democrats jumping on these things to take advantage of it. And again, I'm tired of seeing them twisting the story. I want to play this clip and to show you how they try to change the narrative. And this was on ABC. Now, this guy, this lunatic, in his manifesto, he had names written on the magazines of the guns and the guns itself. And so they're covering this on ABC. Now, first of all, we would not have this manifesto at all. They would have held it from us. We would have never seen it if these people online didn't get it. But now that we have it, the media has to, react to it. So instead of actually showing what it is, ABC tells you, how exactly. Listen to how they shape this and twist reality. Listen.
And tell you there are crude diagrams of the church. There are also photos of the weapons, and they include all sorts of writings, the names of past mass shooters, criticism of Israel, the name of President Trump written on the guns. There are also...
Oh, Trump's name was on the gun. You would think this guy's a Trump supporter. He's got Trump's name on the gun. Maybe it was a MAGA sticker. But how did he have his name on the gun? Well, he had "Kill Donald Trump" on the gun. Twice. He had it on the gun and on the magazine. He had all these other things, for the children, where's your God? There were warning signs that were missed with this kid, and that is the issue that we have going on here. Instead of admitting what's going on, this person's got a mental illness, let's get him help. No, we're going to play the game. We're going to affirm his gender. And I'm sick and tired of it. And again, this Mayor Frey, boy, I can't tell you what a low individual I think of this guy for mocking the Catholic Church as Catholic children were just killed by a transgender. And he's, how dare you, go after the trans community. No tears shed for the Catholic community. No, I'm going to stand with the Catholic community today. We must protect our Catholic community. None of that. So I know I've gone on about it. Listen, I'm going to jump into more of it. Again, if you listen to my Trump is Trending, I put up another video on X yesterday. I've been all over this with this Robert Westman who changed into Robin Westman. This was a nightmare for the mainstream media because they don't want to cover this the way that it's supposed to be covered. That's why podcasts are dominating. People want to hear what's really going on and get some real news, not this nonsense, alternative narrative shifting nonsense that you see on CNN and on ABC and the likes like that. So let's get on my friend Jim Pfaff. We're going to talk more about this tragic shooting that took place at the Annunciation Catholic School Church yesterday in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Jim Pfaff, of course, the Conservative Caucus. He's on the show, on the program all the time. After that, we're going to jump over to Gordon Chang. We'll get into some other politics. All right, so let's put a bow on this. Let's finish up talking about this shooting here with Jim Pfaff.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I'm at the White House with my dad, and you're watching The AlecLace Show.
You're listening to The AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Jim Pfaff. Welcome back to The AlecLace Show.
Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you as well. I want to start off with this tragic school shooting that we had yesterday and a couple of points. First of all, I want to say that, they made the announcement that the weapons were purchased legally. Okay, there was a shotgun, a rifle, and a handgun that was used. All three were purchased legally by the shooter. And my opinion in this is that this was a kid who changed his name as a minor, right? He was already showing interest. He changes his name. In my opinion, they talk about gun control laws. One of the laws you need to implement is if you're a transgender, you give up your right to own a weapon. We know this person's mentally ill, and we're selling them weapons. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that there are appropriate laws that should be in place for people possessing guns with mental health disorders, and I think I'd cast the net more broadly, including people with transgender issues. The reality is, very falsely and against the science, the main psychological institutions and including some government institutions recharacterized a trans situation as not being a mental disorder.
It was gender dysphoria, was what it was.
It is a dysphoria. It is a mental disorder. I mean, you can't deny that. Listen, we can have a free society where people decide how they want to live their lives. What we cannot do is pretend they're not what they are. And in the trans community, that is a mental disorder. However graciously we might treat certain individuals, and I don't want to say that all trans people are going to end up committing murders. I think that's excessive. But we do know this. There is a pattern. We have got more than a handful of these mass shootings that have been perpetrated by trans people, seemingly in large part because of their opposition to those who will not accept their false lifestyle.
Well, and that's just it. They've been radicalized by the Democrats, by the mainstream media, as if they are under attack. So they feel like they need to defend themselves by it's like if you don't believe that I'm a girl, I'm going to shoot you. It's like that's how it's become. And so this whole thing has been so bizarre the way that the left has embraced it, especially as far as allowing men to perform in women's sports, to go into their locker room. It all comes back to that. And people that are looking at this, that are rational thinking people, are saying, why are we enabling? And then they accuse you of transphobia. But in my opinion, and the way I frame this is that if you truly love the individual and you truly cared about the individual, you would get that individual help. You wouldn't affirm this mental illness and coddle them and tickle their ass with a feather. I mean, to me, that's hating the individual.
Well, I totally agree. Listen, I don't have transphobia. I'm against the trans idea because it is antithetical to reality and to truth. So, but what's most interesting about all this is you rightly point out that Democrats foment this. In fact, I'd put a whole lot of blame on the political speech being perpetrated by Democrats to inject fear into trans people. That is a major, major problem that helps stir a lot of this up. But when you look also practically at what's actually happening, the violence is against people who call out the trans lifestyle for what it is. That's where the real violence is happening. It's not happening against trans people. I don't know anyone, and I've never run across it in political discourse, people that are Republicans, conservatives, kind of on our side of things, ever expressing real hatred towards trans people. I mean, I'm sure it's out there to some degree, but not in mass. I mean, most people feel concerned for these people and desiring them to have a better life and actually to come out of that and find a process to do so. But Democrats lie and try to make those of us who know what the truth is about male and female that try to make us out to be the bad guys causing violence. We're not causing the violence. They are mostly Democrats by fomenting it, and obviously a very limited amount, but a concerningly high number of trans people that are willing to perpetrate these sorts of problems. By the way, my friend John Lott of the Crime Research Institute, one of the best researchers on gun issues that there is. He texted me this morning an article that he put out pointing out the fact that in the acrylic writings of this guy's, what
Manifesto.
He wrote prior to this, that he was saying he was literally targeting a gun-free zone. So when you get into the gun issue of this, let's just remember the vast majority of these things take place in gun-free zones. The problem is with the person, not the gun. I just want to make that point as well.
And before you came on, I was talking about it earlier in the show, and I was ranting on this yesterday. It's just like they always say, like, this mayor, just Jacob Frey, really pissed me off yesterday. The way he mocked your thoughts and prayers and then was like defending the trans community after a trans just slaughtered Christian Catholic children really drove me crazy. But they say, oh, you got to take action, as if there is some gun law that they can enact that would prevent the shooting that happened. They have the gun-free zones. They don't want to protect the schools the way that they protect the federal buildings. We don't see these shootings happening all the time in federal buildings because they're so well protected. Yet our schools we leave vulnerable all the time and then just say, oh, we have to make comprehensive gun laws. And Minnesota has the red flag laws. Yeah. And there is no gun. The only thing that leads to is let's take your gun away. That's it. Other than that, there is no law that they have in mind.
By the way, I oppose red flag laws that don't have the proper habeas corpus process, the defendant can defend themselves against the red flag. That's it. They do have that law in the books. They did not do anything about it. And we're learning more and more that there was plenty of reason to be concerned about this person. But there's a fundamental problem with Democrats. Frankly, some Republicans have this attitude as well. We don't understand that 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. The reason we have government is to protect us from the bad behavior or to adjudicate the bad behavior of individuals. That does not include taking the rights broadly away from people. We have fundamental rights that are provided by our Creator, but we don't adjudicate problems in the proper way. We fudge the science. We run away from the science and treat people a certain way. We don't. And then so when you have Jacob Frey, I guess his name is, the mayor, out there saying, oh, well, you know, we shouldn't take this out on trans people. What he's totally missing is that issue is not primarily the point here. We do know that a trans person with a very real mental disorder, I mean, I saw the videos that were released out there. They'd taken him down, they came back up. The guy was mentally disturbed. And we're supposed to just sit back and say that's not a big deal? It is a big deal. He had a serious mental problem because of his trans person. And I feel horrible for his parents, but it definitely seems that they helped urge this along by helping him to change his name because of fake Democrat political ideology, not scientific, not sociologically proper. They bought into the lies that Democrats have been pushing out there about trans people, and we all suffer for that on the margins with people like him. This whole, we got to really rethink this. And no, I'm not going to take Jacob Frey's recommendation here. I am going to point out that this is a trans person with a mental disorder, and I am going to pray for people. By the way, prayer doesn't just change a circumstance. And they were bringing up the fact, well, these kids were praying. They were in the middle of a mass. Okay, whatever. Prayer does two things. It actually, God does answer prayer for the person who he will hear, but it also causes us as individuals to put our lives back in order by subjecting our personal situation to a righteous and holy God who cannot be altered, who created this universe. That is the purpose of prayer, and I call for everyone to pray on that basis.
Amen. And this guy rejected that clearly in his writings. This guy was a demonic person. He in one of his cartoon drawings in that manifesto, he saw himself in the mirror as a demonic figure. This guy was obviously spiritually corrupted, very far removed from faith. And as you said, you feel bad for the parents. Where this is everybody missed the warning signs with this kid, or they saw them and they neglected them intentionally because they were afraid of not being an ally to the community or not affirming his gender or whatever it may be. Teachers didn't spot this. This 23-year-old kid, not one teacher spotted this throughout his career, not one friend, not one counselor that he talked to. Nobody this kid knew saw signs that he was cracking or this kid was way out there, and they were just too afraid to admit it or get the kid help.
Well, when you read the English version of his letter, it's very clear actually that a lot of people saw this. Okay, and I'm not blaming all of them for this. Most of them I wouldn't blame. But the point is, it was known. Let's also point out, by the way, he did target the Catholic school that he himself attended on the basis of going after them for having religious faith. That is a key component to this. Both this issue of transgenderism and the anti-Catholic, anti-Christian bias that exists in Democrat rhetoric. I mean, listen, Democrats are specifically anti-God, anti-religion, and anti-science and reality. They are fomenting a political agenda and a way of approaching politics that denies reality, that denies truth, and that is opposed to their political opponents, often to the point of violence, certainly to the point of political violence in the sense of a censorship industrial complex, lawfare against Donald Trump, and many other things that we can point out. The Democrat Party's not it is not an American party. It is a party determined to change the United States into something that it was never created to be, radically transform us, go away from the Constitution. And as they ramp up the political rhetoric to that end, on the margins, you end up having violence. Not just here, the LA riots and the No Kings protests, the ones that went violent. I mean, let's just understand, these problems exist because Democrats have decided that they want a political rhetoric that will gain them power, but will not support and defend the American ideal.
Yeah, well said. And then they're in denial of what they're doing. So even like you say, the LA riots, they're saying, what LA riots? There were no LA riots. Like
Yeah.
they tell you like they're like you're living in a Looney Tune like world. But and the other thing too, well, even when it goes so far, Jim, is that you have a Supreme Court justice that can't define what a woman is. Or obviously knows what a woman is, but is afraid to do it because she doesn't want to upset the transgender community. We've gone too far as a society. How in the world do we get to this place where you have it all the way up where a Supreme Court justice nominee says, I don't know what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. Like at that point, we should just take you out of serious consideration for anything. Now this woman's on the bench and she's deciding law in this country. Like I think we've got way out of control with it.
No, we have, absolutely. By the way, this is a 100+ year process that began with the early labor movement and its connection to people like Woodrow Wilson to accept this idea that takes us away from a free society. They had the early socialist movement in this country was determined to eradicate any idea of God's, hand being over all the earth and all of history. We've seen a radical effort to take those ideals out, which are the only basis for any moral code. I had an argument with someone on X recently who was talking about the morality of this or that thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, because God does design this. And he was like, oh no, all these moral codes come from man's creation of religion. We've totally eradicated and extracted truth. The idea that there is only one kind of truth. You can't twist it relativistically for your own purposes. And after about 100+ years of this movement growing and growing and growing, particularly in the last 20 to 60 years, what do you expect? People feel like that they can go ahead and shoot people. They feel like that they can bypass our legal system. I mean, there's so many things when you extract God from the equation, when you will not accept that there is a creator to whom we are all accountable, which our founding fathers understood. Even the deists among them, even sometimes in Thomas Paine's case, the atheists among them knew that moral code was substantively necessary for a society to have health in it. And we lived in a healthy society, even with our faults, for some time. The Democrats are committed at this stage in their party's history to break all that down for the purpose of raw political power. We need to call them out for this. We don't have to blame Democrats directly for this specific instance, but we can very well blame Democrats for the environment that they've built up in their political rhetoric that has led us down a path where these things become easier and easier and easier over time if we're going to continue to allow that rhetoric to go forward.
And you're right, because I remember hearing, I think it was Bill Maher. He was on with, I think he had Charlie Kirk on. It was a couple of months ago or something. He was, he's a big atheist. He doesn't believe in God, but he could not argue back against the point about what it brings to our society and what it does to help society. And you do see this, and we've seen the breakdown of our society. I would also throw in there the fact that our nuclear families have broken down. So you have God's been removed from society, the father removed from the home, and that combination has absolutely crippled our country. And if we could get fathers back in the home and God back in society, 99% of these problems that we're seeing would go away quickly.
I have this ongoing private DM argument with a well-known progressive so-called Christian, and I'm going to be talking about him sometime in the future, but I'm just going to point it out right now. So Dr. James Dobson just passed away last week. And for those who may not know of him, he's the founder of Focus on the Family. He was a child psychologist, well-trained research psychologist who wrote a book called Dare to Discipline to oppose the whole Dr. Spock mentality of there's no morality and just let kids do what they're doing and whatever. And he was trying to reassert in society the Christian understanding of how God designed the family. And this guy that I'm having this argument with, he's like, yeah, no, if we do homosexual marriage, it's no big deal. And listen, I'm not out to bash homosexuals and try to destroy them. I disagree with homosexual marriage. I disagree with the homosexual lifestyle, but I'm not trying to bash them as individuals. What I am trying to say is this guy lampoons Dr. Dobson publicly and privately, but doesn't understand If you do not have well-formed families, if you do not have a society that honors a married mother and father in the home raising children, you are breaking down the foundations of society. It's not just, and I think it partly is, it's not just God's judgment on a nation. It's literally fundamentally the breakdown of the formation of the one thing that makes a society stable. In the West, we have been destroying the family in so many ways, through public policy, through cultural norms that have changed, and through bashing male leadership while telling women to hate men. I mean, you can't do this for a long period of time in a society and believe that you're going to have any stability moving forward. So many of these issues have their foundation in the state of the family in this country, which is frankly pretty woeful, not just in society as a whole, in secular society, but the church is really struggling with this as well. This attitude needs to change. And I'm saying this in honor of Dr. Dobson, for whom I worked and was a great man. We need to reassert this now. This is the time, or we're not going to save the society for the future. It's just no way to get out of the problems that are going to continue to increase unless we change this trajectory.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Jim, 7 years ago, I started a show, First Class Fatherhood. I interviewed over 750 dads on that show. Everybody from Steve Harvey to Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes. All these people that I interviewed about it, just about trying to change that narrative about fatherhood, family life, and get this younger generation to embrace it, to embrace fatherhood, to embrace the family, because our culture is in a lot of trouble without it, and you know that better than anybody. And but sorry to harping on it. That's where it's time to take action. They keep talking about this mythical, we need to take action in the form of no, we need to take action by getting our families back together. We need to take action by bringing God back into society, and then we will see real change in the country. But
absolutely,
I'll give you the final word. I wanted to hit a few things, but I'm going to have to jump here because I got to get some other interviews going. Give me a final word. I know you got the Conservative Caucus. I got the link down there in the description below. Hit me with something to take us away.
Well, listen, I just want to reassert that we do have a situation right now where Democrats are failing miserably in what they're doing, but the only way to fill the vacuum that is easily there to fill is to change our attitude about how we're doing our politics. Support Donald Trump, but also get out in the 2026 elections, which we're going to do as an organization to try to affect that. So go to theconservativecaucus.com and you can get information about what we do and information about how we can help you make a difference. Because we do need to stand up. We got to build our energy moving into 2026. Because what happens in our elections is not the answer to all of our problems, but it is a fundamentally necessary effort that we undertake so that we can fulfill these other things that we need to do to be able to get our society back on track.
Well, we have the momentum now. We got to crush them, and hopefully we could do that as we lead into the midterms. The conservativecaucus.org. I got the link down there in the description below. Jim Pfaff, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me today on the AlecLace Show.
Thanks, Alec. Good to see you.
All right. Grateful to my friend Jim Pfaff for jumping on the podcast here. The Conservative caucus.org. Got the link in the description down below, and he's right about so many things. Listen, this is a good versus evil battle here. We're in a spiritual battle. They have destroyed our families. They've taken God out of society. They've taken law and order off the streets, and they are just trying to spiral our country out of control. If we didn't have Donald Trump in office right now, we'd be totally finished. Totally finished. If that were the case, we wouldn't have a chance. But we do have Trump. And now we have a chance, because even the mayor of D.C., Mayor Bowser, had to come out and offer, in not so many words, a thank you and how much she appreciates what has been done in Washington, D.C. And to not acknowledge that would make you insane. Black lives have been saved in Washington, D.C. because of Donald Trump. Black Lives Matter's website right now should just be one thing on the page. Thank you, Trump. You've done more to save black lives than the history of black lives in existence. So a thank you is in order, and it's great to see Mayor Bowser coming back to reality. Yes, the fact that no one's been murdered in 14 days in D.C., this is a good thing. We like the fact that black people aren't getting butchered all over our street. And carjackings are down 87%. Wow, shouldn't we be celebrating that? And Mayor Bowser is coming around to it. And the Democrats are in fear that Donald Trump will take this to other Democrat neighborhoods that have been run by Democrats for decades, do the same thing, and prove that their policies are shit. President Trump already showed that at the border. Look at what happened at the border. You had millions of people coming across, Democrats saying, well, we can't do it because of the Republicans. We can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of that. Trump came in and right away, zip, shut the border down completely. Doing the same thing in Washington, D.C., where they said it couldn't be done. Our policies are better. No, they're not. And again, reality is the biggest problem for the Democrat Party right now. Now, without Trump, we wouldn't have a chance. One of the things right now that was trending last week was that Trump said he was championing or behind letting 600,000 Chinese nationals come into the country to study. So 600,000 Chinese students he wants to come in and study at our colleges. And I have yet to find somebody in the MAGA world who feels like this is a good idea. Now, I trust in Trump. I always give him the benefit of the doubt. Usually 3 months down the line, you say, oh, you know what? Trump was right about that. It's a little difficult to find it when it comes to this topic. So the best thing you can do is get the best people that are in the know, and the best one is Gordon Chang. So I got Gordon Chang coming on to talk about this. He is the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. You got to follow him on X if you're interested in anything with China-U.S. relations. And I'll put this up real quick. This was what Gordon Chang said on X the other day. My dad arrived in America in February 1945 on a scholarship. So his father benefited from this, from coming to America to study. He received a master's degree in 1946. A generous America allowed him to stay. So how could he be in conflict with that? Let's bring him on the podcast. You got to follow him on X, at Gordon G. Chang. Let's bring him on.
You're listening to the AlecLace Show. The future is family.
All right, let's do this. Joining me now, Gordon Chang. Welcome back to the AlecLace Show.
Thank you, Alec.
Well, as soon as I heard Trump talking about 600,000 Chinese students coming to the U.S., I said, I got to talk to Gordon Chang about this because I haven't been able to find anybody in MAGA world or anybody anywhere that thinks this is a good idea. So I kind of just wanted to get, what was your first take when you heard this coming from Trump?
I couldn't believe it. This is just wrong. And it's wrong for a couple of reasons. First of all, of course, we know that a substantial portion of the Chinese students spy. It's sort of not their fault. I mean, they are coerced into doing it. We got to remember that wherever there are Chinese students, there are either Chinese consular officials or Ministry of State Security agents who monitor, coerce, and surveil them. And so if we're going to more than double the number of Chinese students here, we're going to probably more than double the Ministry of State Security agents here as well. And that's not a good thing because we're already overwhelmed. But the second reason is more important. And that is our educational institutions should, as a matter of first priority, maybe their only priority, is to educate Americans. And every spot that we give to a Chinese student is one fewer spot for an American. So we're robbing our future here. So I think that across the board, this is a really bad idea.
And let me just, so I clarify this too. This doesn't mean like Chinese American students, right? This is separate. This is kids coming from China. This doesn't include American Chinese kids that are here already.
That's right. We're talking about Chinese nationals coming from China. These are people who the Communist Party wants to be here or permits for various reasons. So this whole flow of students, and I can understand what President Trump is probably thinking. He's thinking this is a great trade issue because this certainly helps our balance of payments. Because essentially what we're doing is we're exporting services. But the problem is that China believes it's in its net interest for this to continue, which means it's not in our interest for this to continue. And that's the way the Chinese regime looks at it. But as I mentioned, for other reasons I just talked about, I believe that this certainly is not in America's interest.
Well, that's what I'm trying to play devil's advocate of. I would imagine there has to be some reason Trump is doing this. And I don't know if it's to leverage right now because the trade deal is still going on here. There's nothing concrete with China. So I think in Trump's mind, if he says, no, we're not going to allow any of this, it hurts his negotiation tactics. Is that a part of this, you think?
Well, that's the reverse of the way it is, because if China Trump is saying, look, this is good for the U.S. So China's going to look at it and say, well, if we permit students to go to the US, then we're doing the US a favor. So in trade negotiations, they're going to be asking for a concession. So Trump talking about this as some benefit to the US actually undermines his bargaining position when he talks to the Chinese.
Because the benefit is for China in that case. Now, I know that they keep saying that if we don't have this, 15% of the schools are going to fail. I keep hearing that number get thrown out there. So what is that all about?
Well, I mean, obviously, Chinese students come in, they pay full tuition, and they fund a lot of stuff. Now, some of the stuff they fund does benefit the U.S. So, for instance, people who do research. But also, we've got to remember that these universities, especially the elite ones, have bulked up on administrators. So what we're doing is we're paying for all these DEI and CRT administrators. So this is not really in our interest. This is a problem in elite American education. And the Chinese are having to fund it to help us continue something that is obviously not a good thing.
And you know, I seen your post on X, and I'm imagining how difficult this position is for you because I read it before you came on here for the listeners. My dad arrived in America in February 1945 on a scholarship. And so he received a master's degree in 1946, just showing you how hard it is for you to disagree with what's going on here. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, my dad received a scholarship from the nationalist government of China. This was during World War II. It was to study engineering. And so he left China in 1944. He arrived in San Pedro, the port of Los Angeles, in 1945 in February, took the Transcontinental Railroad to Ithaca, New York, got his master's degree. And, you know, normally he had always planned to leave, to go back to China. But he couldn't, and a generous America allowed him to stay here. So I have a lot of sympathy for Chinese students. But the problem is, this is a very different era. We're not talking about Chiang Kai-shek's nationalists anymore. We're talking about a communist party that has declared the U.S. to be its enemy. And so this is not helping us, to say the least. And that's why, you know, it's not just a question of theft. It's also a question, you know, our obligation to our own families to educate our young. And, you know, we talk about families here sending their kids to college. Well, this ain't helping them. I just don't see the other side of the argument.
And I talk about this all the time too. It just seems like the American kids are going to these schools and they're studying gender studies or these ridiculous degrees that don't help them. And the Chinese nationals that come over here, they're not fooling around with those degrees that ain't going nowhere. They're going for the top tier. They're getting the master's degrees in useful, whether it be technology or whatever field it's going to be, medicine. And they're getting the real deal. And while we're sitting there fooling around with these things, the kids are coming out of here buried in debt. And the college system seems like it's completely failed in America. It seems like it's a failed system.
Absolutely. And that's the broader questions, which really don't have to do with China. But the one area where it does deal with China is that Chinese students, by and large, they're not studying gender. They're studying STEM topics, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And that means Americans don't have those places because they're being sold to basically China's future communists. So my point is, let's educate Americans.
What would be your suggestion if you were talking to President Donald Trump and you had a say in the meeting here with this is all going down? What would be your pitch to President Donald Trump on how to handle this?
Well, I'd say, and I'd talk about my family's history, but say that, and in America, yeah, we have been enriched by people who have come from other countries who have wanted to live here. As a matter of fact, immigrants are the fiercest defenders of our democracy because they don't take anything for granted. They know what communism or they know what totalitarianism looks like, and they don't want to bring it here. But the point is that we're dealing with Chinese students who, by and large, are forced to return. And so, you know, this is not good for our country. You know, if we could educate every American in STEM topics, I'd say, sure, you know, I'd be happy to educate people from Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan or China or wherever. But that's not the case here. We're not educating our own people. America first, Mr. President. That's what I would say.
And I would agree with that, especially when we see the amount of fentanyl that's come through from China, which I believe is an act of war. You've seen the Chinese spy balloons
Absolutely.
flying over our country. This is a country that hates us. This is a country that absolutely hates Americans.
Yeah, the Chinese regime has declared a quote unquote people's war on us. They did that in May 2019 in a landmark editorial from People's Daily, which is the most authoritative source in China. We're Americans, so we don't think propaganda, we just ignore propaganda. But propaganda for a totalitarian regime like China is critically important. They put their best people in it. They spend so much effort on it. And we don't understand what the regime is saying about us. I'm not saying this is the Chinese people, because the Chinese people are the first victims of the communist system. But this is the regime, and this is the regime that is mobilizing its nationals against us. And, just one other thing. China's National Intelligence Law, 2017, Articles 7 and 14, require every Chinese national and every Chinese entity to commit acts of espionage if demanded. And China's communist top-down system, where the Communist Party demands absolute obedience from every Chinese national, means that Chinese nationals, they're required to not only commit acts of espionage, but required to commit acts of sabotage, acts of war against the United States. So that's what we're dealing with. And every time we have Chinese students come here, we have Ministry of State Security agents and Chinese consular officials monitoring them. So if we more than double the number of Chinese students here, we are going to see an influx of Chinese agents and operatives on our soil.
That's frightening, and we know this. I mean, if we know that, our intelligence agencies know this, they're aware of this. So, like, we see it too. You've seen the Chinese national spy inside the NYPD. We caught one there. So you see them popping up everywhere, and it just seems like by doubling it, because right now I think it's 300,000. You're doubling this here, and it's like you said, it's going to double the chances that this is going to go totally south on us. And I can't figure out why in the world, like I said, what is the benefit here to us? Truly, at the end of the deal, what is it that Trump sees? He has to see something. I don't believe Trump is just saying, yeah, I'm going to do this to sabotage America and help China. There has to be some kind of thing that he sees that he's doing this.
Yeah, no, Trump obviously sees it's a benefit to America, but I see it, and a lot of other people see our interests in a very different way. And so, Trump is Trump. He's great. He's got great ideas, and he's not willing to let the bureaucracy to slow him down. And that's terrific almost all the time. But the problem here is that there was nobody, because Trump's a force of nature. So there was nobody in the administration who stood up and said, Mr. President, this is wrong. You should not do this. And so, we got the comments that he's made twice now about the students. So this is not going to be good.
Yeah, and obviously I'm a very big supporter of President Donald Trump, but I'm also an amateur when it comes to China relations. So that's why I'd rather get takes from you and people who know to see, am I missing something here? Am I seeing this wrong,
You're not missing anything. And by the way, experts on China, they generally have a worse view of it than your typical ordinary American who is armed with common sense. We send a lot of people to Georgetown's graduate school of international relations, where we teach them to become stupid. So I'm trusting any American at a truck stop in Tennessee over the person who's got all the degrees from elite universities in international relations. So I'm with you, Alec.
Well, and let me, since we're on, we've beaten this kind of to death here. Let me switch the topic here, because another thing that's going on right now is the AI, right? We're in competition with China with the AI. China has this NVIDIA rival, CambraCon. And they're discouraging their people from getting, buying NVIDIA. So what does this mean to the whole AI relationship here with China?
Yeah. AI is going to determine the course of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Now, what determines AI? Well, it's chips, and China's chips are not that good. And we learned that a couple of weeks ago when DeepSeek, the AI company, was delaying the release of its R2 model. And the reason why it was delayed was because they were trying to use domestic Chinese chips, Huawei's of Send, in place of NVIDIA's chips. So here's another area where a number of Americans, especially security professionals, disagree with President Trump, because President Trump has said he's willing to give export licenses for NVIDIA's H20 chip, which is like the third or fourth string chip. But China doesn't want the third or fourth string chip. It wants something better. And now NVIDIA is trying to persuade the administration to give permission for an advanced NVIDIA chip to sell to China. Really, really bad idea.
Yeah, because they're saying that China is trying to triple their output of AI chips, and like you said, AI. This is the future. It's coming at us at Mach 3. I mean, it's here, but we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and so this is like a space race in a sense to see who's going to get on top of the game. And it's another one of these things where it would seem like we would be helping out the Chinese if we were to do this with NVIDIA. No.
Yes, I mean, and that's clear from what we saw from DeepSeek. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, he makes a decent argument. He says, look, we want to keep China addicted to America's technology stack. I can sort of understand that, but the problem is when you look at the reality of it, if China doesn't have American chips, it doesn't really, it gets delayed and delayed and delayed on AI. And speed is important in this race because whoever gets the world to adopt their models for AI is going to eventually prevail. And so helping China speed up is not in our interest.
Well, also too, we'll be educating them here too in our country. So it just seems like the whole thing is working. It really doesn't make any sense to me, Gordon.
Yep, and I wish you were running policy.
All right. Well, Gordon Chang, I appreciate you jumping on here. Like I said, as soon as I heard this, I said, I got to get your take on it because it really, I love President Donald Trump and support him. But when it comes to things like this, and I heard him say it twice, and then I can't, and I look through my list of people that I follow that, that I believe are in like the know, and I can't find anybody that agreed with it. And I'm like, I must be missing something here. That's what's got me on this.
You're not missing anything.
All right, Gordon Chang, I hope you'll come back and see me again soon. Thanks for joining me today on the AlecLace Show.
Oh, well, thank you, Alec. I really appreciate it.
All right, grateful to Gordon Chang for joining me on the podcast here. What you guys think about the interview? Follow Gordon over on X at Gordon G. Chang. He is the go-to source for U.S.-China relations. Again, my first instinct is trust in Trump. And so I still wait to see what this is all going to be about. But it is alarming. I mean, 600,000 Chinese. I think China hates us. They're our enemy. Their plan is not to help the U.S. Their plan is to exploit the U.S. And they've been winning. They've been murdering U.S. citizens for years with this fentanyl stuff, man. Wuhan, China, right? We got the COVID-19 out of China. Like, was that done intentionally? I don't know, man. You cannot trust China and the CCP. There is a major, major problem there. So, I don't know. That's why I appreciate Gordon Chang coming on, giving me his thoughts on it. He's in the right path of thinking this is a terrible idea. We'll see how it plays out. President Donald Trump, you got to give him the credit, the benefit of the doubt. One thing you can't do is question Trump's loyalty to America. People want to knock Trump and they go crazy on President Donald Trump. This guy is America first. He puts America and American people first, and he is loyal to America. If you question that, you're missing the plot. All right. One of the things now, and the last thing we're going to hit on here is we're talking about Trump cutting the Fed. Trump, wants to fire Jerome Powell for not cutting the rates. And now we're hearing that the Fed may cut the rates in September here. And he got all the talking about how this is going to cause inflation and all this nonsense. I believe cutting the rates is going to help people in the home market to buy homes, also help our small businesses, and in return, boost the economy. But we're hearing that it will devalue the dollar and all this other stuff. The other thing I got going on, one of the conversations with my kids, my teenage boys, who are now investing in the market and getting involved with some crypto, we have these conversations back and forth, and the difference of crypto and gold, right? And for myself, looking to make a move here, I'm constantly hearing people like my friend Dean Cain. I don't think he goes 2 weeks without tweeting about gold. I mean, he's always all over gold. And so people go back and forth. We're going back and forth in my house about gold versus crypto. And because crypto is the other thing that everyone seems to be crazy about, especially the younger generation, Bitcoin and all that other stuff. And I've seen other people like that, Mel K, who's been on the podcast here before. She's big into the gold and silver and precious metals. So the name that keeps coming up to me is Andrew Sorcini, and he is the one at Beverly Hills Precious Metals Exchange. So just going back and forth with emails, talking to different people. I said, let me bring the guy on, just like I do with Gordon Chang with China. Let me bring the guy on. So I got him on the podcast here now to share the information with me and to share it with you. Are you interested in buying gold, silver, precious metals? I mean, that's what I'm looking to do. And if I could benefit, maybe you could benefit. If you've got questions, put them down in the description below. Let me just kick the tires on it and see what he's got to say. Highly recommended this guy, Andrew Sorcini. Let's bring him on the show.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, here we go. Joining me now, Andrew Sorcini. Welcome to the Alec Lace Show.
Thanks for having me, Alec. It's I'm excited to be able to show people how to protect themselves with gold and silver.
Well, I keep hearing more and more. A lot of my friends, a lot of people that I interview on the show, they're constantly talking me up about investing in gold, precious metals, and it's been nonstop. So it's something that I have been very interested in from my family for a very long time. But here's my question to you, just to kind of get this started off here. Is right now we have Trump trying to tell Jerome Powell, cut the Fed. He wants Jerome Powell too late. He keeps calling him too late. Now we're hearing that he might cut the rate in September. What does cutting the rate? Now, people will say that's going to increase inflation, all this other stuff. How is cutting the rate? How is that going to affect gold and precious metals?
Well, typically, cutting the rate would create inflation. Really, it's when that happens, gold and silver will go up. It's an inflation when there are inflationary times, gold and silver tend to go up, and gold and silver are a good hedge against inflation. So when the daily goods and services that you buy or use start to cost more, the way that would typically be offset is if you can make more money at your job. But most people aren't making more money at their job, so you need something like gold and silver that's going to go up in value when the goods and services that you use also go up in value. So they can offset each other.
Well, and then here's the other part of it. Like I got people in this year telling me gold, precious metals. People in this year crypto. So it's like you kind of, for me, it's one of those things where I wish I would have gotten on gold many years ago. I wish I would have got on Bitcoin many years ago. But as it stands right now, you feel almost like it's like with Bitcoin, you feel like I'm too late. It's too late for me to get in now because it's too high. With gold, it's too late because the prices are up to like what, 3,000, 3,300 per ounce, something like that. So is it too late right now for a guy like me, or people listen to me that are like they want to do something to to balance what might be coming? Is it too late to get into gold?
It's definitely not. And I'll give you a point of reference. In 2011, that was the height of the financial crisis. Gold hit an all-time high in 2011 of $1,900 an ounce. At that same time, silver was $49 an ounce. Now you fast forward to today. We're not in a financial crisis. We've got a lot of crises happening in the world, but that's 100 shows for 100 different days. But at the same time, gold is sitting at almost $3,400 an ounce, when back in 2011 it was $1,900 an ounce. That's a nice move in that time. Silver is at $38.50 an ounce today, when it was at $49 an ounce back in 2011. So even though you could have got silver for about $25 an ounce 2 years ago, it is not too late, because when you figure that gold is up about 75% since 2011, but silver's down about 20%, it tells you two things. One of two things: silver's maybe not as good as gold, or something out there has caused the price of silver to be manipulated. And that's what the big banks have been doing. They keep silver within a certain range, but it's recently broke out of that range. And silver, once silver breaks $40 an ounce, it'll probably march past 50. Then we're in uncharted territory. So I think gold and silver to the moon for sure.
And obviously, like I said, several of my friends keep telling me this. Some of the guests that I've had on here, and they always say, Andrew Sorcini, where do I start? Andrew Sorcini, check out Beverly Hills Precious Metals Exchange. So here's my thing: like, what do I do? If I get involved in this, do I get like a gold bar? Does something like that show up at the house? Like, do I get a little gold bullion that I can hang on the mantle or something like that? How does this actually work? Does Scrooge McDuck show up with some gold coins or something? How does it work?
That's the greatest question anybody could ever ask me, because as simple as it is, most people out there don't understand. This isn't paper silver. This isn't some stock market related gold and silver investment. It actually is gold and silver. So we'll have people that go to our website, they'll fill out an online form and ask us to call them or to communicate with them. They'll make a gold or silver purchase. We ask them for their email address, their phone number, and a physical address to send it to. And we literally will ship it to them via UPS or FedEx. It's fully insured until you sign for it. And what you might not know is these FedEx trucks and these UPS trucks that you see all over town, they're carrying gold and silver. When people hear this for the first time, they go, wow, this can't be possible. But this is just a regular way of transacting. It's how we receive much of our inventory, and it's how we get our inventory to you. And we have insurance that allows for it to get to you safely and effectively. And it really is sent to you discreetly. It's a normal way of doing business for us.
Yeah, I want the armored car showing up, you show up in the armored car. But what is and then I want to ask you this too, Andrew, is what is the precious metal? So we know gold and silver. What is precious metal? Is that just gold and silver, or does it go beyond that? What is precious metals? I always think of like the, they used to cut the, what's it called, out of the exhaust system.
The catalytic converter.
The catalytic converter, because they said, precious metals. So what is the precious metals compared to the gold and silver?
So there's really four of them, four big ones, five. Okay. You've got gold, you've got silver, platinum, palladium, and rhodium. So really, palladium is used in different car parts. There's platinum used in different car parts, and also silver too. So that's when people are out there, stealing catalytic converters and getting the silver out of them. But most of the items used in industry that use silver, it cannot be recycled out of there. So one example would be solar panels. Solar panels actually have silver that they use as a conduit for electricity, or the solar power that goes through the panels. So that's actually consumed every time it's put into a solar panel, because it costs more than it's worth to try to take it out. So to me, that alone shows that silver is just a great investment, because each day that happens, each day that you wake up, there's less silver available than there was the day before.
And the confidence that you have in it is like, if the dollar decreases in value, that doesn't affect the gold. This is separate. So if the dollar drops in value, gold stays the same, or does it increase? How does that affect? If the dollar plummets, what happens to gold?
Usually gold is going to blast off. It's going to go up quite a bit, because Donald Trump, the first words out of his mouth when he gave his inaugural speech was, he said, the golden era of America begins now. And when he speaks, when he's spoken, like just this year, just since he actually took office, he's made many references to gold. There was one day this year when gold actually hit $3,500 an ounce. And what drove it to hit exactly 3,500 an ounce is, you can go on X and you can check out the Donald Trump tweet. He said that he who holds the gold makes the rules. And he's just sending us these messages that we're going back to some sort of gold-backed dollar or gold-backed digital currency. We're going to go back to where our dollars are actually worth the paper that they're printed on, so to speak. And I do believe that that's a big reason why we're seeing precious metals go up in value. And one comment about that, if I tend to talk about gold a lot, and I don't mean to purposely leave out silver, it's what's good for gold is great for silver.
Well, I also tell you, when Donald Trump, when he was making all those statements and stuff, he did say he wanted to audit the Fort Knox and see if all the gold is still in there. So I'm still kind of waiting for that to happen. And you're hoping it ain't going to be one of those Geraldo Rivera opening up Al Capone's safe type of deals there. But so where do we help my listeners out? Because I'm like I said, you come highly recommended. And if I'm doing this, I want to share it with the listeners, share it with the people that follow the show. What's the first step here? What do we do?
Well, the first thing, you should go to our website, which is www.bh-pm.com. And once you get on the homepage there, you're going to see some of the people that we work with, some pretty well-known people that have endorsed our company, which is something that we don't take lightly. When you invest in precious metals, you want to make sure that you are working with somebody that's trusted by people that you know and already believe in. So it's really important to know who you're dealing with. Once you're on our homepage, there's an online form. Put in your first name, your last name, email address, phone number, and say that Alec sent you. That there is just enough. I mean, I'll know that it's somebody that listens to your show. In the notes section, they should be as thorough as possible. Like, we offer precious metals IRAs. People might not know this, but you can convert a portion of your retirement account, or even all of it. It can be a 401k, IRA, government TSP account. It could be beneficiary IRA. Almost any type of pension can be rolled into a precious metals IRA. And the best part is that it's not a taxable event. So if you have questions about that, then fill out that online form, submit it. We'll get back with you with it in about 24 hours. We're not going to high pressure you into making a decision today. We're not going to tell you a story about the gold that we're selling you, was sunk on a ship 500 years ago, and you need to buy this special gold. It costs $5,000 an ounce. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to lay out the facts and let you make an educated decision. If you need to consult with your family or take a step back so that you can make a comfortable decision, one based on fact and not your emotions, we'll give you the time to do that.
Well, I have one question there, just because you said this, and so you're saying like almost in a mutual fund type of deal, in a sense of putting this in. If you get to a point and you want to pull it out, is there a penalty on you for taking it out, or do you have to leave it in for a certain period of time? Is it a term limit or something like that? How does that work?
It's a good question. So like for people out there, let's say you have an IRA with Fidelity. Okay, chances are it holds stocks right now. And if you felt that, like, hey, the stocks I have, I've done well with them, why not throw $50,000 or $100,000 of what you already have in your retirement account into gold and silver? If you do a rollover into gold and silver, that's not taxable. Now, if you do that rollover and let's say a few months go by and not any specific amount of time, just any amount of time goes by and you say, geez, I think I should have $5,000 worth of silver sitting at my house and I want to withdraw it out of my IRA. If you did that, that's a taxable event for the amount that you withdraw. But that's okay, because it's the same as how it is now. If you had it Fidelity and it's holding stocks and you need $5,000 for an emergency, you sell $5,000 worth of stock, you take a distribution, and it's taxable.
But there's no penalty. I understand tax. Yeah, that I know. You're going to get taxed on, but there's no penalty for doing that. Because as far as I understand, like, I was like, if you're not 60 or 60 something years old and you have 401, you start taking it, you get a penalty for taking it out early. Then you get taxed on it as well. So we wouldn't be no penalty involved with it as well.
No penalty at all. It's we have some people that own annuities within, say, an IRA, and some of those have a pretty big penalty. So us being an honest company, when we talk to you, and if you say that you have an annuity, we'll have you do a little research on your end to see what that penalty might be. If it ends up being like 10 or 15%, we'll advise against actually making the precious metals purchase, because the main thing that we're doing here is if you can make money with gold and silver, that's great, but that's just our secondary goal. The primary goal is to protect what you have using physical gold and silver. We talked about inflation. Another thing is that if we went to a gold-backed currency of some sort and you own gold and silver, you're in on the ground floor. And we're definitely going to something like that. And if United States doesn't, we've got the BRICS nations already setting up a central bank digital currency that is gold backed. So the world wants to fix the monetary system, and they want to do it with precious metals, and they want to use crypto with it as well.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And just the last point, you just to follow what you said there. If we did go to the gold backed system and we're already invested in the gold, how does that play into it? What does that do for us then?
Well, there's a good chance that gold could be revalued, and they're talking about reevaluating gold, and gold could potentially go up over $10,000 an ounce in a very short period of time. If you were to go on the Federal Reserve website and just search on that website gold reevaluation, they came out with an article just this month in August where they're talking about how the growth in gold spot price from, say, the $40 an ounce, which many countries out there have owned gold since it was $40 an ounce, they're up a ton. How they can use that gold to actually help pay off part of the national debt. But really, they're talking about giving gold a new value, and it could be multiples of where it's at now. And the United States is already behind that, and many other countries are as well. It sounds pretty far-fetched, but it actually could take a big bite out of our national debt.
Yeah, especially if I'm not in on it and it happens. That would be tragic, just like not buying Bitcoin at like $100. So, all right, Beverly Hills Precious Metals Exchange. Give me the website again. I'm going to put it on the screen for my
Sure.
listeners, and they can tell them that Alex sent them via Andrew here. Go ahead. Where's the website?
It's BH, like Beverly Hills, hyphen or a dash, PM, like preciousmetals.com. And pretty much every page has the form that you need to fill out. Definitely do that. I look at each one of them personally, and as detailed as you can be in that note section is how I get you the best help. If you're a complete novice and you need somebody to kind of answer a bunch of questions that you feel might be basic, not a problem. I have some people that can help you with that. If it's a retirement account and you just have questions, fine, let me know. Whatever it is, if you've been buying gold and silver for years and don't really need a consultation, just want to see what our pricing is, then reach out to us that way.
All right, Andrew Sorcini, you're the guy with the information. That's what we're not. At least, and I encourage my listeners always get the information, whether you do it or not, whether you pull the trigger or not, whether it's for you or not, get the information. Maybe you got somebody in the family that might want the information. At least you have it at your fingertips. I like what I see, and hopefully I see that armored car with the FedEx pull up there in front of the house. Andrew Sorcini, love to have you back. Thanks for joining me on the AlecLace Show.
Thanks for having me. I'll see you soon.
All right, what'd you think? Grateful to Andrew Sorcini for jumping on here. www.bh-pm.com. Beverly Hills Precious Metals Exchange. Tell them Alex sent you. That's what I'm going to tell them when I fill out the waiver. But what do you think? Is it worth the investment? Is it more stronger than the crypto that we see? Is it more? What's more risky, gold or crypto? It seems like gold may be the better way to go, especially if you're looking. And one of the things I wanted to ask, maybe I'll get him on, and next time I ask him, is about a 529 plan, like because Trump has the $1,000 startup for these babies' accounts, and I'm wondering maybe you could roll that into gold. I don't know how that works. Maybe that's a question for another time. What was your take? Again, I got the link down there in the description below. www.bh-pm.com. Go check it out and get yourself some gold, precious metals. Tell them Alec sent you. Grateful to Andrew Sorcini, as I am Jim Pfaff and Gordon Chang. Again, my prayers are with the Catholic community, especially in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The clergy that is there, that's going to be dealing with the fallout from this, is not going to go away easy. So we continue to pray for them and hope we don't see another one of these tragedies for a long, long time. All right, that's what I got for you guys here today. I appreciate you stopping by. Grateful to the guests. Grateful for you, the listener. God bless you, your parents out there. God bless our police, our first responders, our military, and our veterans. God bless America. And I will be back on Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Rumble. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.